Well, we are here. We're back. It's Monday.
It is Monday.
We've missed you. It's been a lot. It's been a busy weekend for most of us. Some of us didn't even preach.
It was a different kind of busy weekend, but it was still a weekend. It's really weird. And we've talked about this a lot, but when you're not at church, sometimes it feels like more work than actually being at church.
Sure.
I was sitting in another service texting Frank and our worship leader and Megan, who was running our live
That's
stream.
because Frank was in this room.
And I was that way about 7 miles. You were up there.
Doing what I typically do every Sunday.
But that was all yesterday.
This is the morning after.
Welcome to the Morning After Ministry Show, a caffeine-fueled look back on the week and ministry that was.
Well, yesterday was Sunday, Andrew, which means this is the morning after, which is what we do each and every Monday.
But not next Monday.
Every single Monday.
Next Monday is Memorial Day.
We've never missed it. We've never missed a Monday.
We've missed several. We've done this a lot.
But there might be a Monday soon because of a special episode number that we might do something special.
We might. We're getting very close to that magic 300.
We have been planning the 300th episode for months and months, possibly years. Really since day one.
Like the first time we all ever hung out,
we knew we had a plan.
At the DYM podcast 300th episode recording.
We did. That's true.
We all got T-shirts and stuff, and so we thought, wouldn't it be cool if we did 300 episodes
with
and
we got
T-shirts
for everyone who leaves a comment?
I remember when we got those shirts, I kept thinking, I don't want to wear this shirt because it's just big bold 300.
It says it says 300 and counting.
And people were like, "Is that your weight?" And I was like, "I don't want this shirt anymore." I hated that shirt. I threw it away. I gave it away pretty quickly afterwards. But
all right, Andrew, you didn't preach, but walk us through your kind of odd Sunday.
It was a very odd Sunday.
Because typically when you're not preaching, you're not in town. But to be in town and basically just across the way a little bit.
Across 19. So my son has been at First Lutheran School for the past 3 years. And the next 3 years, my third son will be at the same school. So we have been at a Lutheran school that still follows very much the parochial model of this school is a ministry of the church. Therefore, several things that happen in the life of the school happen in the life of the church. So there are several times a year that whether it's singing or they do handbells or whatever, that the kids
That's festive.
The kids are expected to be there. And Landon has, for the most part, gotten out of it because
he's a pastor's kid.
He's a pastor's kid at another church.
Yep.
But for the graduation, they don't have like a Friday night graduation thing. The graduation is part of the church service. Because you have...
So it's not a separate thing that the church does. It is their graduation.
It is
interesting.
Regular church service, and at the end of the church service is the graduation, and they've done it this way for the 50 years.
Now, I grew up in a church where they also did graduation for the students, but it was not like the school's graduation. It was, hey, here's our high school seniors, and we actually wore cap and gown to church on a Sunday morning.
And so you had like all the different colors of the caps and gowns from the different schools.
Yep.
This was not that. This was, you have kids, and of the 10 kids in the class, I think 6 had been there for at least 5 or 6 years. So there were kids that had been there quite a while that were graduating. And so I was worshiping at First Lutheran Church in Clearwater, Florida yesterday. And I've never been in a Sunday morning service at First Lutheran Church. I've been in some chapels.
So this was your very first Sunday morning at First Lutheran?
It was.
The school at which your kids attend?
For the past 3 years, yeah. And it was unique.
That's all you
Say
got?
more.
I was thirsty. I had to take a sip. Well, it was there. It is a church that is well established. They've been around, I want to say, close to 100 years, maybe even longer than that. So it's a beautiful facility. You've done sports things.
Many
there,
different sporting events,
it's
volleyball,
a fantastic facility.
Football, soccer.
But the congregation itself is maybe 65-ish or 70, and there are not a lot of young families in the church.
Got it.
Also, there's a lizard in the door. Can you see the shadow up here, guys?
Stop.
Yes. Look at that.
You get so distracted.
I've got adult ADD.
How do you preach in this room?
It's very distracting.
You would die at Lakeview.
So it's just looking at us now. I was doing the dad thing. So we live about a mile away from there. So they have the trifold board that's set up for all the different graduates.
Yep.
So we got there early so that Landon and I could set up his board and do all that stuff. And so then I'm sitting in church, and it's just weird to see people running around doing the things that you do in that 15 or 20 minutes before church starts.
And you're not doing
and
it.
I'm not doing it.
It's crazy.
And it was also unique. I think we should note that the pastor of that church, his undergrad degree is from Trinity College of Florida.
Whoop, whoop.
Hey.
So he's a guy.
The Trinity College of Florida.
He's a guy that I've become quite friendly with in the past 3 years, and it's a very conservative church. I've had no issue with my kid being at school there. It's been pretty great, but it was just funny to see him running around, making sure that screens are on or turning on.
Classic.
The sound in the cry room, which is right off. Because when I do it on a Sunday morning, which you think someone else should be doing it, not me, but I'm running around. I did not see. I was sitting too.
Did you count for them too?
CJ, literally before we went live, I was like, "Hey guys, we need to reach out to CJ at lunch and text him. They've had a rough weekend. We got to check on our buddy." I don't think we do anymore. I hope little dude's okay, but it was just I was sitting too close to the front. I couldn't do a head count, but we were definitely sitting in somebody else's pew.
Oh,
so
they walked in and were like,
we walked in, and the people behind us, they were like 2 rows behind us. They're like, it's graduation Sunday, and like you could tell
you could hear like the murmurs.
And it was like the people that worship there every week
there's new people here.
They're excited because there's a bunch of new people, but they're annoyed because the new people are in their seats.
How dare they?
And good. That makes me feel a lot better, CJ. But
that's great news.
But it was so funny to watch Pastor Andrew, which is my name. But
that was a different Pastor. Andrew.
His name was Andrew Apple, and he was running around.
What a great name.
Pastor Andy.
Doing all
Andy
of
Apple.
the things that he's supposed to do. And so, but he's got, the remote in the cry room, and he's coordinating with the sound people that they're up in the balcony loft section. But he's like running around in full vestments and like, the robe and stuff. I'm like, at least
it's a different look.
It's a different look when you're turning.
He didn't have the vest and tie.
No, it's a little bit different when you have when you're in the jeans and the button down. You feel like you can hold a remote, but there's just something about I've got the ancient vestments and I'm trying to get this remote
High church,
to collect.
baby.
Oh, high church. It is an interesting thing. But and I don't know if this was just because it was the graduation Sunday and it was one of the bigger classes they've had in the past little while, so it was going to take a long time to do all the graduation stuff. Sermon was 9 minutes. With the
literal opposite of Lakeview.
with the
9 minutes?
With the whole high church thing. Well, if you count scripture readings, there's a fairly lengthy passage.
That's a eulogy.
But
it's a homily.
Yeah, well, maybe that's what it was.
It was a homily.
But so we're talking scripture reading, and there were several scripture readings in the service because, again, very liturgical. But it was no, he did
Bree,
not.
don't worry, we're getting there. We have a whole segment dedicated to this. Bree, you just wait.
The podium's back there. But it was just when you're visiting at another church, you can set the watch and do things that you wouldn't normally do. So,
sure. And
I had little brothers that were missing their church and were very confused by why we were reading so much from the screens.
This is a different pastor, Andy. It's not my dad.
It was just a very interesting thing. It was great, if you're curious, they're an LCMS Lutheran church. Again, I would have no issue. City Lights. The beauty of high church scripture preaches itself.
9-minute sermons every week.
But
you still get paid for that?
Yeah, that's what I was. Wow. That's literally what I was thinking. Like, man, it's a pretty sweet gig if you can get it. My goodness. But it was.
Is anybody complaining about shorter sermons?
No, it was exciting and wonderful. And then we had
I've had
cake
one complaint
and
about a short sermon.
punch and a Olive Garden catered lunch afterwards.
Wow!
So it was quite the ordeal, but it was very weird to be in town and not be preaching.
You were in town and not preaching. Frank was in town but preaching at a different church. So Frank, you were in this space yesterday. Walk us through the setup. Did you have to run the live stream? Did you do the head count? Did you preach while sitting down? Was your mic cable draped over the front? We know Andrew so well, so we don't know. Did you assume Andrew Larson yesterday?
Absolutely not.
Wow.
No. Wow. I put my microphone on correctly down the back of my shirt.
Was everybody in the room just baffled?
Great.
Were they like, "Where's the cable?
What is this organization?"
I'm gonna have to get an alcohol wipe and clean off the cable now. It's touched Frank's bare skin.
No, I had an undershirt on.
He wore an undershirt.
I had an undershirt on. I will say I didn't tell you this. I had some issues uploading my slides because I
Into PowerPoint?
I exported them as just images, and I forgot that you don't have ProPresenter, that you have PowerPoint because this is 1996.
I export from Keynote into JPEG, and then I export all the JPEGs into a PowerPoint file.
What?
I export all the JPEGs into a new Keynote that I
This is too much.
export
There's
as a
so
PowerPoint.
many
So
steps.
you export what?
Why would you do
I mean,
that?
I know why. I know
Okay.
why.
Because
You
the-
don't have to- you
because
don't
of
have
the
to
So
explain
it
fonts.
can preserve the
Yeah,
formatting?
Yeah.
So
The
because
fonts are different.
I make my slide. This is going to be the most niche conversation
Oh
you ever
my
heard.
gosh,
Okay.
Larson.
We could talk about sign-up sheets.
By the way, we're canceling practically pastoring. That's over, and we're never doing another show game. Okay, no, I knew this, so I made my slides in Canva. I
Okay.
exported them as images because you're right. If you export them as PowerPoint, you'll lose the fonts. Uploaded them into Keynote, and I thought I didn't need to do that. I was like, I could just drop these images into PowerPoint. That didn't do anything. So I had to get luckily I brought my laptop. How much, I would have to log into Canva on that computer or something. I had to get my laptop out, put it
One of
into
the
Keynote.
joys of a laptop is that you can bring it with you places.
Yeah, I was trying to be quick. So I then
Money is definitely on Frank. There's no
exported
question.
into, yeah, you're right, CJ. Or you could go to ProPresenter.
I mean, that's an option.
But here's the
That's
thing.
an option.
How many times does ProPresenter crash?
Once a year.
At least one Sunday a year, you are freaking out because ProPresenter has crashed right before service starts. Do you know what doesn't crash? A PowerPoint
Stop.
license that expired in 1995 or 2015, whenever it was.
Oh,
Our
man.
PowerPoint that has not been updated in forever never crashed.
I'm pretty sure he's using Windows ME right now. Millennium Edition.
We are
Wow.
not. It's Windows 8 or something.
So yeah, so that was an issue, but it was like resolved pretty quickly. I put the microphone correctly. I almost played drums because you told me
I told you could have.
That would have been sweet.
Here's the thing, I didn't.
should've done it.
I only knew one of the songs,
Okay.
so I was like not sure if I could. But the other songs were pretty
You
simple.
can count to 4.
I
That's
can
all
count-
drummers have
It's
to
all
do.
super simple.
I don't play the drums. I'm sitting between,
CJ says
I'm
he's been on
sitting
ProPresenter
between-
for 2 years, has not crashed once. You know, it did crash a few times. The ATIM Pro. Yep.
Does he know about?
We
We had issues.
That's really funny.
we just got a new A10 because
Wow.
We have had issues.
That's really funny. So yeah, I preached. Didn't sit in a stool. I stood the whole time.
Were you tired?
it's a long time to stand.
Stamina.
No, in fact, only having one service is pretty sweet. So
Yeah. Is that 2
agree.
weeks in a row for you? Or the
Yeah.
second time preaching in a row where you
Yeah.
only had to do one service?
only one service. It was
Must be
pretty
nice,
sweet.
boys. Must be nice.
Yeah, I preached. I did sneak in a couple jokes in there.
Made
I
fun
talked
of me.
I talked about how the last time I was at this church, it was to fill in for Andrew while he was gallivanting around Europe.
I
So
did gallivant.
I talked about that. I talked about how the church needs more people to volunteer to serve in different areas, so that way I don't have to hold a remote to move my own slides. Like I'm a poor person. I don't know what was
Listen,
going on there.
I like holding the remote.
No.
I like
No.
to go forward.
I
like
want
to go
someone else
backward.
to run it for
Why
me.
would you go backwards?
Because sometimes, like, if you're like off the cuff, you're like, ooh, hey, look at this point in this verse.
This is why I manuscript. I don't go
Same.
backwards like that.
Same.
So,
I manuscript as well, but sometimes I go backwards.
and then I made a joke about you counting. I said I said this is not in my notes, but Andrew counts. There's a head count in here that is unacceptable. There's
You're rebuking a church that
there's
you've
like
been to
eight-
twice.
There's 80 people in this church. Someone else can count. And you know what? Shirley in the front row, she was like, I agree. but Safety Harbor is not like a very like, amen, yes, talk to you
Yeah.
back church. They were talking to me. They were like, you're right. Andrew does too much.
Frank had the people like chanting.
I did
They
make
were
him-
engaged.
I did make him talk a little bit to me. So I even said in the beginning, I'm not Andrew. I'm not sitting. And I want you to talk back to me. So, yeah.
Okay, this could be the argument here. Jared says, I hold a remote every Sunday because we can't really trust the person behind the computer. But that's a whole other conversation. So now we know why Andrew actually holds the remote.
See, in my previous church, I did not hold the remote, and I would print out my manuscript and like highlight, like
Hand it to them.
Here's
I've
slide
done that.
one.
I do that every
If
Sunday.
it's a
night.
long sermon, I will do that.
That's. I have no issue, and I like having something in my hand.
I don't.
I like having something in my hand, and so
My question for you
I
is,
prefer the clicker.
You have someone back there though.
Yes.
For the live stream.
Yes.
What are they doing on the live stream? Like what are they actively
Pushing
doing?
these buttons when
You have different camera views that you're using?
only like we have.
I feel like during the sermon you never change
no,
shots.
we have the worship view and the.
So when he says buttons, he means button. They push one button.
They push
Like
one button
one time in the
three
service?
times
Or
during the
three times?
service. But
Tight,
that-
wide.
yes.
I think that's a teenager
tight,
who
wide.
just doesn't want to stick to their parents.
Yeah.
And they just want to.
Yes, and I go out of my way to give jobs like that to teenagers. Be like, hey, if you're not here on Sunday morning, this doesn't happen. So it's we need you to be here on Sunday morning.
I feel like you should-
hey, if you could count,
That's
that
true.
would be huge.
Do you know what? You're right.
teenager could count.
Megan has taken like advanced algebra, but here's the thing: she's going to be in Thailand all summer. How cool is that?
No one's
Did you
counting.
Go to Thailand in the
no
middle
one's
of the
gonna
summer.
count.
I feel like it's going to be really hot.
The summer between your junior and senior year of high school to just like go with Thailand to go to Thailand all summer. That's not.
Oof,
that's-
oof,
I've
oof.
never
Jared
done
says
anything that
our
cool.
person is playing on their phone. Many color by number pictures are colored every Sunday. Do you have tech guys on their phones during worship?
Sounds like a problem you know nothing about.
Nothing.
All right.
Absolutely nothing. Frank, you were at a different
You're
church.
smirking.
I
I
was
don't believe you.
joking. There was a few years ago at Lakeview Land where not only did we have someone who was routinely on their phone, they would actually take naps during the service.
Well, that was basically because of the preaching, though.
It was before I took over.
Okay.
That's funny.
My Sunday looked a little bit different. I did not preach one service. I was not at my kid's graduation.
But I heard that people started breaking out in tongues.
There may
I
or
would
may
say,
not
and
have been.
yet, both of our sons are now done with middle school.
That's another story.
Oh, yikes.
We
Is Stephanie watching?
we do
She's
have a
not gonna like
graduation
that
coming
comment.
up. It's
Okay.
on
There
Thursday.
you go.
He's allowed to go to that. Thank the Lord. CJ says, I do have a question for Andrew because I think we're in similar situations. Who do you tap in an emergency if you can't make it on a Sunday? This is a really good question.
Well, right now,
emergency comes in. What do you do?
right
that
now it
weekend?
works out great because either Frank or Tim is not preaching most weeks. Now, come
That's true.
fast forward 15 months from now, and Cross and Crown Church is, launching, and that won't be an option anymore. And
Steph's here.
We have. Oh, hey, Steph. You're welcome.
Thanks, Andy.
I was just saying, like, I didn't say why. I just said they're both done. We had a retired pastor in our congregation who just moved. I don't even know if I've told you that full story. That's a lunchtime conversation.
Yeah.
So Shirley will preach once or twice a year if need be. So she's covering when I'm gone over 4th of July. And other than that, right now we're kind of... CJ says, wait, they're launching. They have an Instagram already.
CJ, it's like you're
It's
inside
like you're
of our inside
in
jokes.
the conversation.
How is this happening?
So, yeah, right now I'm fortunate in that I have buddies that are close by and someone's not preaching. But if it was like Andrew got hit by a bus, what do? Well, 2 weeks ago, I made a 7 a.m. flight to land here at 8:40 so that I could be at the 10 o'clock service.
Me and Tim this morning, we were at Starbucks and we were talking about trying to.
I was so confused by that because like sometimes you guys go to the Safety Harbor Starbucks, but when you got here, you had your giant Polar Pop.
He was drinking that in Starbucks.
So you walk into Starbucks with your 79-cent soda.
No, I had to get gas this morning. I went to Circle K, got the Polar Pop, left in the car, got a cortada.
Do you know what? That's the joy of the styrofoam cup, people.
They stay cold forever.
They stay cold forever.
They don't leak.
We love a styrofoam cup. Okay. So I was like, oh, maybe Frank didn't go to Starbucks this morning
No.
because he has the Polar Pop.
At Starbucks, we were talking about we're trying to figure out a way where neither of us preach in July for different reasons, and we're trying to get other people opportunities. And there's like one Sunday where we're like, who can we get to preach? And now we can ask Shirley. We can ask Shirley.
Yeah.
That was a rough joke. My delivery was terrible, but
It's okay.
He'll get better.
I believe in you.
But yeah, like this is a good question because like even though both of us are here, we're trying. Even though it's gonna end up we're still preaching in July, but like
It'll probably just be me.
we were talking about like, who can we find, and we were talking about well, if we get this person, we're gonna have to coach him for a couple months to lead to that, and then we're talking about there's some person that probably could talk, but you're nervous about what they're gonna end up saying and stuff. So
Yeah.
that's
And
cool that you have
I would say,
Shirley though.
but you guys are in a church that is legitimately 6 to 8 times, if not bigger than that, the size of Safety Harbor. and you're struggling to find backup preachers. So it's a thing. We don't have a lot right now. I could pull a Tim and tap my dad to do it.
Steve
And
Miller is preaching in July.
I would say Steve Miller is great.
He absolutely could preach here, and he would do it.
My dad, I don't think would ever call himself a preacher, but he's been a professor for 40 years.
He could preach,
and he
could
has lectured in lots of different environments, and has done so when his previous church was without a pastor. But one of my favorite moments of all time was when my mom sent me the fact that my dad was going over our resolution runner notes because he was preaching New Year's and downloaded a DYM series that Tim and I had written.
So good.
That made me, it's one of those things like
awesome.
you just want to hear your dad say that he's proud of you, but instead he downloads
It's very meaningful for Andrew.
he
Still never
downloads
told you he was proud of you.
he downloads a sermon series that you wrote, but pretty cool.
City Lights Church says, I have a maximum 3 slides for my sermon every week. That solves the issue.
Okay, but so then do you have,
slides.
being a liturgical church, do you have multiple scripture readings before the sermon, and then you go in, and then during the sermon you're just expounding upon the scripture that you just read? I don't know
Andy, here's the deal.
how that works.
Yesterday,
Or was Sunday.
and I had to tackle 40 verses.
It's a lot of verses.
We
Light
have
work.
we have a verse for a slide for every verse. So
Yeah.
that didn't include any subpoints.
And
So
sometimes you have a slide between the slides.
we do.
Yeah.
So that was it was 80 plus slides yesterday.
The slides person texted me and they said they're filing for workers' comp because they got carpal tunnel.
Just from hitting the space bar. so many times.
Here's why we tackled 40 verses
Boy,
originally.
a
when
clicker would have been so easy in that
it
situation.
would have been awful.
He would have had
I would've
carpal tunnel.
hated that. Like, I would have never kept up.
I love my clicker.
Stop it. Originally, Frank and I
Ergonomically
had
designed.
Stop it. We had the passage broken up. Frank was going to take a week. I was going to take a week. And Frank said, Tim, I think you should just take this whole chapter. We found out you were going to be
Here, yes.
not available
Yep.
to preach here. So Frank and I were able to pivot a little bit. So he was able to preach here. I said, fine, I'll take the the entire chapter. Ended up being maybe the second or third longest sermon I've ever done at Lakeview. So I think the 8 a.m. service hit 50 minutes, which I don't preach. You know me, like we have buddies who like that's a short week for them.
Yeah.
But for Andrew and I, like I'm like 33 to 35 minutes.
Yeah, if I
That's
hit
the sweet
if I hit
spot.
35, I can like feel myself. I'm like, I don't know that
I'm even,
I need to shut up.
I'm even okay if it's 27 minutes. Like, that's fine. Bree says, so Bree also happens to be our kids ministry director. I did apologize in all 3 services to our kids ministry staff and volunteers. I'm not saying it was Frank's fault, but I am saying it was partially Frank's fault
And partially my fault then.
and partially Andrew's fault. We agreed we're going to tackle 40 verses, which included speaking in tongues, the gift of prophecy,
Yep.
and the role of women in a worship service.
Yeah, that could have been 2 sermons. Maybe 3 sermons. So
And we like, if you go back, you're probably not going to ever listen to it because it's so long, but we just leaned into it. And I asked multiple people after the sermon, because I was like, did you check out at 30 minutes? Because I'm like,
Yeah.
I knew I wasn't even close to being done. And they were like, no. Lakeview's so funny. We had people come to me and say, we had this one circled on our calendar. We have been looking forward to this passage for months. I'm like, what? Did you ever do that in church growing up? Like,
Oh,
I got several emails
maybe in
from
youth
people.
group when you knew the sex talk
That
was
was
coming.
it.
Yeah.
Only during the month
I
of
was
February.
like, I can't wait for at the movies. I'm just kidding. Never mind. That's
So
a bad joke.
Tim, did
Wow.
you when you know it's a longer one? This is what I've
Yeah.
come to find myself doing recently is when you know the sermon is longer and the text dictates. Do you just kind of skip over the illustration? So my
I had very few
I was like
illustrations. There was a couple.
my outline every week is whether it's the hook, look, took book or however you phrase that. You know the
Real rub, read, ready.
Me,
respond.
we got you.
Yes. Tim and I made that the real, the rub, the read, the ready, the response.
Yep.
But it's the exact same thing.
When you're walking through 40 verses, that doesn't work.
But so yeah, I was gonna say so, and I try to find what is that personal life story, and then have you ever noticed we all do whatever. I found myself skipping over that
Yep.
with a here's where we were last week, and then kind of immediate on ramp.
You also own it. Hey, this is gonna be a long one today. We've got a lot to cover. I hit those 3 points right up front, so everyone's like, oh, and made a quick joke about being able to solve every issue, knowing that we're not gonna be able to solve every
No
issue.
awkward story about my kids this week.
Yeah,
We're
there was
just
one
up and
story
running.
about my son, and there was like every other illustration was maybe 3 to 4 sentences at the most, just to keep it rolling.
Hey, I just got an email from Denny's saying that if you get one American Slam, you get another one for $1. I don't know if there's a Denny's close by, but it's a great deal.
Frank texted me after the third service, had everything go, and I said, man, my manuscript was 5,000 words, which
That's too many words.
That's double what it normally is. I mean, not quite double, but close to double, 5,000 words. And I had we added a theological component to the membership class last night, so my membership class manuscript was also 5,000 words. So that was a 20,000 word Sunday for me.
As someone who has shared your membership manuscript for the past 7 years, what did you add?
Frank suggested that we walk through our newly updated.
Why am I getting blamed for this?
I thought it was a great suggestion. He said, hey, after the last membership class, he said, hey, we should print out our core beliefs, our statement of faith, and they should have that in front of them, and we should go over that with them at the next membership class. So that's just a great idea. So we did that. Now we're realizing we should have shortened that because our statement of belief section on our website is a whole lot longer than I anticipated. As I was going through it, I was like, oh, this is a lot.
See, we
Should have
What's going
ChatGPT'd
on?
it.
no idea. Someone might be climbing up something.
There are phantom
Some-
noises happening behind us right
There's
now.
a squirrel in the building.
All that to say, I was slightly tired last night.
See, we go through the covenant affirmations and so that's the one spot that we've differed. So that makes sense. I get it.
Yeah, I don't know how many more 20,000 word Sundays I'll have in the near future, but I would say I don't think I could do more than 2 or 3 of those a year. That's how exhausting
I
that
think
was.
next time we have a membership class, someone else should be preaching that Sunday morning.
Agreed.
Yeah,
be easier.
but you also, it's one of those Sundays where you have people, hey, I'm thinking about joining this church. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
Christmas Eve, you want the senior pastor preaching. There are some Sundays that you just want. Now, hopefully by the time someone's coming into a membership class, they've been worshiping there for 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is. But I think that's kind of a thing where you want the senior pastor to be the communicator that they've heard most recently.
And I texted you last night, Andrew, because I've just been shocked. I think this is maybe our 20th membership class since I've been lead pastor. And I'm like, at some point,
It has to slow down, right?
that's what I was saying. Like I remember years and years ago, like we would, have just like one table and a couple people, and we're going on 20 plus where the room is like pretty full. And do people still like are they bought in with church membership? I just think it's hilarious that people
Mary
give
had
up,
to order 2 trays of lasagna.
people giving up their Sunday nights for a 2-hour membership class just cracks me up. But I'm not complaining.
I love that tray of lasagna.
It was so good, though.
Dude,
Very
the
rarely
lasagna
do I
was
want
insane.
lasagna at home, but sometimes you get that lasagna from the Italian restaurant that you just.
But as someone who tracks every calorie intake, it was 500 calories per slice.
I do not track every.
and I will
calorie
say I
intake,
ate more
and
than
that's
one
okay.
slice.
And then the meatballs.
The meatballs were 300 per slice.
So
per meatball.
because my Sunday was so different, my Saturday was also very, very different, and I don't remember if it was a podcast that I had done this week or like a long form video, but it was talking about how the way that we worship really it mirrors different cultural trends. And so the reason that a lot of higher churches, there's the robes and there's candles and things like that, it's because during the end of the Roman period, that was what the court system looked like. So here was like the most formal thing we can do to show honor. You have the hierarchy and you have kind of the ritual that you would follow. And then by the time you get to the Southern Baptist kind of explosion or the Methodist explosion, when the academy was becoming available to everybody, and so kind of the long form lecture is what became the sermon instead of the 8 to 10 minute homily. And I was just thinking about that as I was in a Lutheran church where I don't typically worship, and the service was just as long,
right.
but the sermon was 1/3 of what it typically is.
Did you have that many different elements?
Yeah, I mean, and it was lots and lots of responsive readings.
I see.
Lots of, and so I'm very curious as someone who is very much low church most of my life. Like Safety Harbor is more liturgical than the church I grew up in.
Yeah.
And the Presbyterian church I served before was probably a little bit more liturgical, at least in the traditional service. I'm very curious as to where we think different aspects of church come from. You know, the acoustic guitar-led praise band is very much a callback to the late 70s, early 80s. That was what was happening kind of in, I don't want to say like nightclubs, but, you know, venues and things like that. And so the worship reflects culture in that way. I wonder if Matlock had anything to do with the fiery Southern preachers.
So where do you think we're headed? As I watch Gen Z and Gen Alpha like worship leading videos in super baggy Jinko
That's
jeans.
so weird to me.
And tank tops.
And tank tops. Like, is that where we're going?
Or 40-year-olds pretending to be Gen Alpha in tank tops. You know who you are.
Should we wear matching tank tops and then maybe look into each other's eyes while we preach or sing?
Tim, I
Like,
think
would that be appropriate?
That's an average Tuesday morning for Tim and I in his garage.
I was going to say, I think if you
I've
think
never lost
you and
so much
I,
respect for people than in one video in one weekend. Sorry.
if you and I were wearing matching tank tops, it wouldn't look the same. I don't know how to say that without hurting your feelings because some of us God has blessed with the
Look, there were talks
prototypical
of
manly
all
body
three of
type.
us showing up today in matching black tank tops.
How
great would the opening have been for this show?
I would hate it.
I wonder if in a world that is
Can't take them seriously. I'm sorry.
kind of gravitating towards the 1-minute video, I wonder what that's going to do to worship. I wonder what that's
Yeah.
going to do to preaching. Like, I mean, even when we're done with a sermon, if we put it into Opus Clip or Preacher AI or whatever
Yeah.
it is, we're kind of looking for, hey, what's that 1-minute takeaway
Sure.
that we get? I just don't know. Pulpit AI, are we going to get to a church service that is trying to be hey, how do we consolidate this whole thing to a 15-minute, get as much information dump as possible in this short amount of time?
Right.
Are we going to try to make it long and drawn out? But it was just when you have just had something in the back of your head and then you experience a very, very different style, like, oh, okay, so like I can see where and why this style of worship, and also when you're catechizing your people with the responsive reading and, hey, I believe this and Jesus did this, and I think it's important to do all of those things, but I wonder what it means for culture as we move forward.
That was deep, Dr. Larson.
You know?
There's
And now
a
I'm trying to
reason.
read all the City Light comments on YouTube. And
Look,
my
City Light
glasses aren't
says,
that
I mean, SOS is also a cry for help.
sure.
It's true. It's true.
That's very, very true.
Andy, you're back in the pulpit next Sunday. Where are you at? Where are you going? We're heading into the summer. So are you shifting into a summer series soon?
I think we're gonna. I will have it completely figured out by Wednesday.
Oh, no.
I will have the rest of the summer mapped out.
I thought you were going to say I should probably by Wednesday what I'm preaching
No.
on Sunday. Like that can't be happening.
I will have the rest of the summer mapped out, and
I'm
so
all right with
I
that.
want to get to our worship leaders then. But when my strategy for summer is always like I want, that attendance is going to be sporadic.
Hit or
because
miss.
People are traveling,
Yep.
and so you'll have the one really, really big week. Like, oh, okay, this is
Everybody's
normal.
in town
And
this
then,
week.
Then you'll have the next week where it's like, oh, we are 60% of where we were last week.
Yep.
And so I think, as opposed to seeing a series as, hey, this is one 4-week long sermon that's gonna, try to get you around the bases 1 week at a time, you have to kind of have. You're not still trying to hit a home run every week, but more of like the parachute in, parachute out.
Mm-hmm.
So like when we did Summer in the Psalms a few years ago, that was great because it was a series, wink, wink, but it was 10 different Psalms that we
10
were
different one-offs. They just all happen to be in Psalms.
Exactly. And so that's kind of where I'm trying to
So if you come in June and then you miss 3 weeks, you come back in July, you haven't missed the flow of the
exactly.
series. 'cause
And
they
so
all have
I
their
think
own
that's
standalone
kind of
stuff.
what summer has to be.
Yeah.
Instead of, hey, if you weren't here the past 3 weeks, you really missed out on something.
We're taking a similar approach. We're doing commonly misunderstood Bible verses in July and August. So Frank and I are tackling different ones. We have some guest preachers that are going to be tackling different commonly misunderstood Bible verses / passages. It should be a fun one. We are gonna go
All right,
through
so
June.
you've got Philippians 4:13,
Correct.
Jeremiah 29:11.
Correct.
What else you got?
Romans 8:28.
Okay.
Yep. Love and
then-
money's root of all evil.
Yep.
I love money.
You were the root of all evil.
Raise a child in the way it should
Train up a
go.
child.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to look at the other ones.
Yeah, we have a few more on the docket, but they're classic. They're good. They're all. I don't know they're all
Everything
softballs.
your grandma crocheted onto a pillow.
Yes.
All the verses are embroidered in Hobby Lobby.
There you go.
And we're gonna do a giveaway
No,
each
then we're
week.
gonna get them all here eventually.
We're gonna do a giveaway each week with the verse on that giveaway somehow, right, Frank?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good. That's actually really funny.
Actually, we could do that.
That'd be really funny.
I bet we could find
Between
thing.
Amazon and Hobby Lobby, you could find that.
Yeah.
That would be like a really funny tie-in each and every week. You pull out the pillow or the wood plank that has the
Right.
verse on it.
We could.
The thing is, if I hold a prop on stage, I know which Instagram account I'm going to end up on,
Here's-
and so I will never touch a prop on stage again.
Here's the thing. Again, high
Because
church.
you would send it to them.
high church. There,
I've sent several to them,
there was the children's
and
message.
he's reposted them.
There's the children's message in the church.
Oh, yeah.
And so I thought,
Like the kids moment.
yeah,
Yeah.
And so all the little kids went up, and Lewis, our youngest, was like, I'm not going up there.
Yeah, my kids will never.
And so, but I was just thinking, does that count? If you're using an object lesson for the kids moment,
Was it a prop?
it was. It was a.
I mean-
the prop was a keychain.
It's still
and
a
how
prop.
it connects all the different parts. He was talking about how the church connects.
Like, do you now cringe every time you see a prop thanks to that Instagram
I
account?
go to what I said on Practically Pastoring a few weeks ago, where it's like, how is, and I'm not someone who uses props, but a good prop and a good story, they accomplish
same
the
thing.
exact same thing. I think it's different if you have a pitcher of water and you're pouring something out versus if you're
Lighting
writing
something on fire.
or if you're riding a roller coaster on
You're-
stage.
or you're reenacting Ghost and you're clay making something.
Yeah, I get that. But in general, I have no issue with it. Jesus used props. What do you think the bread was?
I mean, Jesus used a prop.
Yeah.
Or it's his literal body.
Yeah. Ooh, again, I was at a Lutheran church, so we could debate this. We're going trans or consubstantiation, all kinds of things. In with an under the elements or
Different-
physically
it's a
present
different
in.
trans, but sure. You started it. Like,
Con-
you literally said that.
I was using theological terms.
But you didn't finish the word.
I finished consubstantiation.
Andrew,
Anyway,
this morning, Frank and I also did something which was a whole lot of fun that I've never got to do before. CJ says, "Hear me out: a bucket of water, ice, and dry ice."
That's actually one of the greatest heretical.
So
illustrations
much
I've ever
heresy
seen
involved in that prop.
on a sermon before. Yeah.
Frank said, "Hey Tim, I know the Jaguars schedule came out. Are there any dates that you would now like to change where you want me to preach?"
How do you feel about that, Andrew?
I know I've known Tim for a long time. And
I said, "Yes,
I was
there
like,
are."
and I get it.
We've changed like 3 dates in the fall because of.
To be fair, I'm not preaching any less. We just shifted the dates around.
And here's the thing: this is the one year that Tim gets to do this.
I may never get through this again.
This next year, come the NFL kickoff week is when Cross and Crown is launching. So this is the one football season that
And
Tim gets to do this.
we went to 3 services this past August. So I did not. For the first time since the inception of the Jacksonville Jaguars, I did not attend one home game. Wow. So that was a big deal.
Because you couldn't leave after the service to be there for a 4:00 game.
Yeah.
Correct. There was just it just wasn't going to happen. So we
and
did.
let's be real, no one wants to see the Jags in prime time.
I mean, we've got a Monday night game coming up, so we'll. People want to watch the Chiefs.
I was gonna say,
but it's in Jacksonville.
okay,
so I'll be there.
There you go.
Maybe I'll be sitting next to Taylor.
Maybe you're gonna have to get a suite for that then. Are
So
you
I
gonna
shifted a few
ride
things
in
around.
a popcorn machine just to hide?
Yeah.
Or a janitor's something?
I just texted my wife, can you go ahead and plug these dates in our calendar? Frank has graciously shifted his schedule around so that, I could go to a few games, take my kids are all asking to go, so I might be taking the family to a few.
I think it's a wonderful thing. Again,
I don't have an ounce of guilt.
you're not
not
you're
even a
not,
little bit.
You're not preaching any less, and Frank is there, and you guys have imposed the sabbatic Sunday part of your church staff, which did not have anything to do with the Jags. So I have no issue with it.
A little bit.
Okay, well, I still don't have any issue with it. Also,
As long as I have Dr. Larson's approval, that's really all I care
Frank,
about.
I keep trying to get Tim to commit to doing a sabbatical with me across the pond.
But I said I would only do it if we wore matching black tank tops.
That's not true.
On
He
the
was
flight.
saying that he wanted to, if he's going to the UK during the fall, he wants it to be when the Jags are playing in London. So
That's a given.
Is that happening?
not this year.
Well, it does happen every year.
It happened, but the Jags.
Jags play with every year.
Yeah.
But we haven't booked our trip yet.
Yes. Well, it's a good thing because I spent the last of all of my miles. So I had I still had about a third of my miles left over after my European excursion, but my wife and I are going to New York for a very nerdy play on Broadway that she's very excited about next month.
I think it sounds great.
And so we're doing.
Sounds great.
We're going to New York, and the flight and the 5-star hotel came out to $68 after
What?
after I cashed in all of the rest of my points.
Dave Ramsey would be so proud of you.
No, he would not be because I got those points on credit cards, but
Yeah, but how many interest payments did you make?
none.
0.
Yeah, so that's
As in absolutely 0.
yeah. You pay off the account balance, and you.
Interesting.
Also, I'm pretty sure
Interesting.
that Chase Sapphire has a $100,000 sign-up bonus right now, which
100,000 points.
100,000. Yeah, I'm sorry, 100,000 point bonus right now. Which
I mean, that's pretty
that
tasty.
could.
Does Melissa have a credit card?
She has my cards, but no, she does not have one in her name.
And
So-
she might soon.
Yeah, it's going to be time pretty soon. Once I start saving for the next big trip, we'll put one in her name. She's gotten to go on both of the trips that I've paid for with my points, so I should get one in her name and still go on it. It'll be great.
I love everything. Boys, we have a lunch meeting with a DTS.
Admissions.
What's his role?
He is.
Is he going to try to recruit Frank and I to something?
No, I think he's trying to be like, how can the seminary better serve local churches?
I like that.
So-
That's cool.
I think that's something that the seminaries should be doing.
Is he going to give me his views on dispensationalism?
I doubt it.
I'll ask
But
him.
he's meeting us here in 8 minutes, so we should probably wrap this thing up so we can lunch it up.
I mean, you know the drill.
Yeah.
We'll be here same time, same
no,
place.
not next week.
Yeah.
Next week is Memorial Day.
I'll
Tim.
be here. I'll by myself in a black tank top.
You will be in your pool
Probably.
next week.
Probably. That is
Don't lie.
very-
Don't lie to the people.
Very accurate.
But
Hey, we miss
soon,
you already.
Very soon, we'll be right here.
2 weeks. It's a long time. Frank, you going to be all right?
Yes, sir. I'll be great.
Appreciate that. Hey, we miss you. We'll see you soon.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.